In a kingdom where ancient traditions and modern innovations coexist harmoniously, there lived a young girl named Cinderella. She resided in a sumptuous mansion with her father, a respectable and kind man. However, one day, fate struck without warning. Cinderella's father suddenly passed away, leaving behind a vast void and a devastated daughter. Cinderella then had to live with her cruel godmother and her frivolous stepsisters, Javotte and Anastasia. While Javotte lost herself in selfies and online shopping, consuming the latest trends through her phone screen, Anastasia constantly wandered virtual stores in search of fashionable clothes. Meanwhile, Cinderella was relegated to housework, cleaning the house, preparing sumptuous meals that only her two stepsisters truly enjoyed. Her hands reddened by bleach and soap, her heart grew heavy with melancholy at every contemptuous glance she encountered. Despite the modernity that had swept the kingdom with its electric and internet-connected cars, royal customs remained deeply rooted. The people deeply loved their king and prince, a generous and charismatic heir. One sunny morning, as birds sang through the open windows, news spread across social networks like wildfire. The king was hosting a grand ball, a spectacular event to find a worthy bride for his beloved son. The news of this ball immediately ignited the imagination of the kingdom's inhabitants. Javotte and Anastasia could speak of nothing but terms like designer dresses and celebrity hairstyles. They dreamt aloud of the countless photos they could post, showcasing their supposed elegance to all their virtual followers. Cinderella, on the other hand, continued her labors, head down but mind wandering. She secretly imagined what her life would be like if she could also enter the palace, feel the cold yet royal marble beneath her feet, carried away by the sumptuous waltzes until the early morning. Though silenced by her domestic obligations, her heart beat with the rhythm of a still timid hope. The date of the ball approached, that marvelous evening soon to fill all thoughts. In Cinderella's house, excitement and anticipation filled the air. In the days leading up to the event, Javotte and Anastasia frantically rummaged through their wardrobes, choosing and discarding dresses while spreading out makeup plans on the kitchen table. Their godmother guided them with an iron hand, making sharp aesthetic decisions, while Cinderella struggled with the last preparations. Poor Cinderella, whose soul quietly sang the hope of attending the ball, saw herself each day further removed from this dream. "Why can't I go?" she dared to murmur one morning as she folded sumptuous fabrics with care. Javotte burst into laughter. "You at the ball? In those rags? What a joke! Wouldn't the prince be ashamed to see us accompanied by such a neglected creature?" Anastasia added a complicit look to her sister, and they both laughed, leaving Cinderella to her troubled thoughts. The pain of humiliation made her movements heavy, but she persisted, holding on. Deep down, she knew that kindness, despite everything, had to prevail. Her mother had always told her that humility and patience were virtues nothing could match. The evening of the great day finally arrived. The godmother and her daughters left long before nightfall, adorned and perfumed, their hair sparkling in the beams of their limousine's headlights. Cinderella watched them leave, her heart gripped by a pang of melancholic sadness. The night dropped its starry veil, and the house suddenly became oppressive and dark without the shrill voices of her oppressive companions. With tears in her eyes, she tried to convince herself that staying wasn't so terrible after all. She searched her heart for the spark, something she felt wavering, fragile. But this time, even the sky seemed to conspire against her. The stars remained silent and no wish was granted. But perhaps, oh who knows, destiny still had a card up its sleeve. Sitting in a corner of the kitchen, lulled by a single candle, Cinderella let her thoughts wander. Why was she not allowed to be happy, just for one night? Suddenly, a burst of light illuminated the dark room. Surprised, she looked up to discover a magnificent woman, shining like 1,000 fireflies. Her fairy godmother had come to her rescue. "Cry no more, dear Cinderella," murmured the good fairy in a honeyed and comforting voice. She held out her wand, adorned with sparkling crystals, like a forgotten gift. "It is time for the world to discover the beauty of your heart. I am here to help you." Hope was born in Cinderella, a flame in the darkness. The wand rose gracefully, and with a circular motion, the pumpkin in the garden turned into a blazing coach. Its golden rays illuminated the night, lighting up the garden like a summer sunrise. Four little mice, who had until then simply gnawed on offered crumbs, transformed into four magnificent white horses. The magic unfolded before the amazed eyes of the young girl. "But what about me?" asked Cinderella, still dressed in her tattered clothes. The fairy smiled, and with a wave of the wand, her dusty rags turned into a dazzling blue gown. Never had she seen such refinement. Her feet, accustomed to cold and inhospitable floors, found themselves encased in shimmering shoes as if crafted from the very stars. "Remember, my dear," reminded the fairy gently, "the magic will end at midnight. Make sure to leave the palace before the clock strikes." Filled with gratitude, Cinderella hugged the good fairy to thank her. Then, swept away by the sparkling promise of the night to come, she climbed into the coach. Her heart vibrant with fear and joy, she made her way to the palace, where destiny awaited her, shining and unexpected, under the cordial beating of thousands of candles carefully arranged for the most sumptuous ball of the year. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, the world was abuzz. Guests flowed in waves, all adorned in their finest attire for what many said was the ball of the century. The gardens were filled with hanging colorful lanterns, gently swaying in the breeze. The palace, large and imposing, sparkled with countless lights, each shutter gleaming under the lights like a rediscovered jewel. Cinderella stepped slowly out of the carriage, standing tall and proud, but her heart almost secretly leapt with a mix of fear and excitement. Eyes turned towards her, and murmurs emerged from the group of nobles waiting. Who was this alluring stranger cloaked in mystery? Stories were already being woven, at the rhythm of whispers mingled with bursts of laughter. Inside, the prince conversed with a few lords and high-ranking ladies, aware of his duty to represent his royal stature. Yet, as Cinderella crossed the threshold, his eyes drifted toward her. Something about her manner fascinated him. Perhaps it was her smile, or the mischievous sparkle in her eyes. He felt an undeniable attraction. He walked over the silk carpet and allowed himself to cut short the routine greetings. "Miss, may I have this dance?" he proposed, extending a hand with his words. Cinderella, bewildered by this unexpected chance, nodded, bowing her head to hide the blush on her cheeks already lit by the emotion of the encounter. The music began, gentle and captivating. They danced, spinning under the celestial dome, where chandeliers like constellations placed a dream paradise above them. With each movement, each exchange, they learned about each other, their laughter brushing with complicity. Time seemed to suspend, and they forgot everything that was not the shared moment. However, the minutes flew like the wind. The carriage would not wait. When the clock tower struck the first stroke of midnight, Cinderella realized it was time to leave, hastily, even if her heart wished to stay. The mirror's embrace seemed to crack, revealing a hidden nightmare just behind. But for the prince, only the echo of an enigma remained in the night. Cinderella hurriedly left the grand ballroom, her heart pounding wildly. Her run was rushed, each step bringing her inexorably closer to the exit, each beat of the clock ringing like a reminder of her fleeting condition. In her haste, one of her sparkling slippers fell, abandoned on the palace's cold floor. She did not slow down, her silhouette stealthily gliding through the opulent corridors until she reached the courtyard. There, the night air was sharp, stinging her skin as if to awaken her from a too real dream. At the exact hour, the magic vanished. Instead of the grand carriage, an innocent pumpkin lay at her feet, and the proud horses, now ordinary mice again, scattered into the shadows. Breathless, her heart still racing from her fairy tale adventure, Cinderella returned home, alone but nourished by precious memories. The splendor of the ball still floated around her, a bittersweet dream etched into the silence of her regained solitude. The next morning, the entire kingdom was stirred by sensational news. All the newspapers, virtual networks, and animated chatter told the story of the mysterious stranger who had captured the prince's heart. He had found a unique slipper, a glass boot sparkling with crystals, and he cherished it as the only clue to find his lady. The rumor thrived. The prince had ordered an emissary to search for the young girl throughout the kingdom by trying the precious shoe on anyone who might be its owner. Who knew what each day would bring? The slipper had to reveal a truth, a meeting that no one could alter. At Cinderella's home, Giovanni and Anastasia prepared themselves, excited by the prospect of this new chance. Deep down, Cinderella knew her fate was tied to this shoe, but remained in the background, silently observing the spectacle surrounded by fervent anticipation. The prince, she thought, would know to recognize the purity of that singular moment, even if magic must be continually renewed in the hearts of men and not with enchanted accessories. The kingdom's emissary did not take long to arrive at Cinderella's home. Javotte and Anastasia awaited him with impatience, proud, each certain that the shoe would fit them. The gentleman hoped to find the young girl who had dazzled the ball, and his face betrayed a mix of excitement and seriousness. Javotte first tried her luck. She pushed and pulled, but to no avail. Her foot simply would not slide into the delicate slipper. Then Anastasia took her turn, showing a nervous smile. Again, the attempt was futile, and she pretended to laugh, embarrassed. Cinderella watched the whole scene with amazement, surprised by both her sister's determination and the curious twists of fate that played in her favor. The gentleman turned to her. Frankly distrustful, the two stepsisters wanted the orphan to keep a certain distance. "Don't waste your time," Javotte called out with disdain. Yet at the gentleman's encouragement, Cinderella stepped forward hesitantly and, with a pounding heart, gently slid her foot into the slipper. The shoe fit as if it had been crafted for her from the start. Silence spread through the room, heavy with revelations, as the women's eyebrows gradually raised in surprise. The news quickly spread throughout the kingdom. Cinderella was the stranger from the ball. The prince, relieved and delighted, arrived promptly, joyful to reunite with the one who had stolen his heart in a few dances under the blazing chandeliers. Cinderella had only one request. She forgave her cruel godmother and her stepsisters. With wisdom and leniency, she sought to restore harmony and peace. She bade farewell to the family home to join the prince at the palace. A few weeks later, the marriage was celebrated grandly, uniting their love under the benevolent gaze of the kingdom and the modern age. Javotte and Anastasia, over time, learned to recognize their mistakes and resurfaced under a new light. Cinderella, having become a princess, left only tolerance and understanding in her wake. She warmly invited them to her table, finding illustrious husbands for them, finally offering a home to all those who sought happiness. It is in this blend of old royal traditions and modernity that their story endured, leaving each the dream and the choice to write their own endings.